ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। चैप्टर 4 वर्स 12। कांक्षन्त कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त हि देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा। Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. Okay, so fruitive activities, before we go into the purport, karma, there is karma. Here Krishna is talking about karma. Then in the modern, in Kali Yuga, it is not karmis. These people are karmis who follow karma kanda, who follow Vedas. They're called karmis. Modern people are called sense enjoyers. Sense enjoyers, and it's mostly vikarma. So Krishna here is actually talking about karmis. At least they go to demigods. Vikarmis, they go to nobody, as in they're mostly atheists. They just want to do whatever they want to, as in they are not interested in following any scriptures, any rules, regulations, etc. So fruitive work means doing activities as per karma kanda, following the Vedas for elevation to higher planets, good punya, so that next life is more comfortable. That is fruitive work. Men who desire success in fruitive activities, they worship demigods. And like I said, the most of the population in Kali Yuga, sense enjoyers, they don't even understand that there is a next life, and they don't really worship anybody or anything as such. And then there are a little bit more sattvic people who do this demigod worship. Now, even if they do demigod worship, they are actually doing with an intention of getting something in this life. In this time and age, very few people understand that what they're doing now is preparation for next life. So they do for, and they hope that, okay, let things become better in this life. But actually, it doesn't work that way. So they don't know. And if you tell them saying that you're not going to get anything in this life because of all the things that you're doing, maybe they'll stop doing it, right? Because who cares about next life? But people who do, they get results. They get results. And so that is why they can enjoy the fruits in the next life. Purport, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There's a great misconception about the gods or demigods of this material world, and men of less intelligence, although passing as great scholars, take these demigods to be various forms of the Supreme Lord. So this is very interesting, because mostly implicitly people don't really talk about this, but when they think about God, they just think about, okay, everybody is Supreme Lord, everybody is God, everybody is on the same level. So they kind of, mentally they think, okay, worshipping one is equivalent to worshipping another. Vishnu is also demigod, Brahma is also demigod, Ganesha is also demigod. So this is a very big misconception. Actually, the demigods are not different forms of God, but they are God's different parts and parcels. And this we understand. So all the demigods are just parts and parcels of Krishna, Vishnu. And Krishna, Vishnu is the source. They are the source. He is the source of all these demigods. They're not on the same level. And they're all parts and parcels. So demigods are also just superior living entities in this material world. They also have birth and death, but they live a superior life compared to human beings on this on this material, on this earth planet. They live in what is called as heavenly planets, Vargaloka. Like sun planet is considered heavenly, moon planet is considered heavenly. So they live in heavenly planets, and they take care of various departments of this cosmic mm, creation. God is one, and the parts and parcels are many. The Vedas say, Nityo Nityanam. God is one. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Supreme God is one, Krishna. And the demigods are delegated with powers to manage this material world. So who gives them the powers? Powers are given to them by Krishna. And so, which is why, when we read Bhagavatam, we understand that whenever demigods have a constant. So, by the way, okay, so demigods, their quality of life is way superior to people on earth, right? So they have very high quality of sense enjoyment. They don't have they don't have take birth like us. They don't die like us. They don't undergo so much of pain because of body and mind and all that. There's a lot of enjoyment for them. But the thing is, when their time is over in the heavenly planets, they immediately fall down. They have to fall down literally. They fall down. And when they fall down, apparently it is said in Bhuloka, Bhur Bhuvasvaha, Bhuvarloka. Bhuvarloka is between Bhuloka and Swargaloka. In Bhuvarloka, there are ghosts and pretas and all these. Apparently, the body of the demigods are eaten by those ghosts as they fall through that planet. So while their life in heavenly planets might be superior class, but the way they end it is a bit sad. I mean, ours that way is better, because we at least know gradually saying that, okay, at least most people, hair is becoming white, old age problems are coming, this, that, okay, gradually we are going there. But for devatas, they don't know all this. The garland that they are wearing, it'll fade one day, and then that's it. That is the end of their life there. And they fall like this and come through suffering. And then Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita that they come to earth, then they're eaten by animals, by humans, in the form of grains. Then they that can get converted to semen, and then enters the mother body of a lady. So like this again, they take human birth. Kshine punya martyalokam vishanti. But their powers are, they don't have, they don't have any power to take care of any of their janma mrityu jara vyadhi problems. And whenever they have problems, they run to Vishnu. Of course, they go to Brahma. If Brahma is also not able to solve, then they run to Vishnu. So they are called, um, they are called uh, um, Sakama Bhaktas. Sakama. So they have some desires. They have material desires. But they are Bhaktas, they are devotees. Why? Because they are working for the Supreme Lord. They are taking care of this whole cosmic manifestation on behalf of the Supreme Lord. So they are devotees. They are devotees, but they have material desires. So we respect them. We respect demigods because they're very dear to the Supreme Lord. But they are not pure devotees. And our goal is to become pure devotees. So in fact, demigods also become happy when some jiva becomes, when jiva takes shelter of Supreme Lord, the demigods are very pleased. So it's not that we don't have to worry about suffering, because many devotees are afraid. And we say, stop demigod worship, take out demigods from your altar. They're like, will the demigods become upset? No, they won't become upset. They'll become happy that we are actually serving the Supreme Lord. And so their powers all come from the Supreme Lord. And that is why it is said actually in Vedas, it is said that sun does work due to fear of Supreme Lord. Moon does its work because of fear of Supreme Lord. Everything is like military. It has to run exactly at prescribed required time, etc., etc. Right? So, um, but they are not independent, and they clearly understand it. See, this is the beauty about demigods, right? Because they take um, shelter of uh, Supreme Lord, um, but they're completely surrendered. They're completely surrendered, and they're like that. They'll go and tell Supreme Lord saying that, please protect us, please protect our kingdom. So they're Sakama, but they're very dedicated. They have no other shelter. They know that they go to the Supreme Lord. Like Arjuna, for example, when he was here, his powers after the Kurukshetra war, his powers were taken away by Krishna because it was not required anymore. And of course, because of Krishna's will, he loses in the hands of some cowherd men. Of course, it is also said that Krishna himself came as these cowherd men to take away his queens to Goloka. Among all the queens of Krishna, it is said that those 16,100 um, women whom he marries, who were arrested by Bhaumasura, apparently they had like, gopis kind of feeling for Krishna. So he had to take them to Goloka. So he arranged some pastime. But anyway, the point is that his powers were taken away. So like this, everything, all powers are given to demigods by the Supreme Lord. Many times in Bhagavatam we see, like Indra, Brahma, sometimes they forget. They forget saying Krishna is the Supreme Lord. They are also bewildered. So what to say of living entities in this material world who are defying the Lord's position, defying him, saying, I don't care. I'm not going to follow your rules. They don't know that he's the supreme controller. But demigods know. Demigods clearly know, saying, oh, no way. No way we can go against Vishnu. Whatever he says, we will do. He's our supreme well-wisher. They know very clearly. So they're very superior. They're very superior. Right? Very surrendered. So they are delegated with powers to manage this material world, and they're very powerful. I was just thinking about this, saying that every every part of our body, every literally part of our body is in the control of demigods. We might be thinking, saying that I can move my hand like this. No, I can't move unless there is sanction from Supreme Soul, and it is sanction goes to the demigods, and demigods have to allow this action. Once, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj. So he was saying in one class, saying that, one day he just slept, and he's saying that, okay, tomorrow morning, Mangalarti, this, that, and all that, whatever, like his normal routine. And then he said he got up in the morning and he couldn't lift his hand. And he says his realization, saying, who even thinks about this? Saying that next day morning, I can't like lift my hand. I have like a frozen shoulder. So Maharaj was saying that, we take things for granted. We think that everything is running under our control. Big illusion. Nothing is in our control. That is a reality. But till we come to understand that reality, we are in illusion. Demigods are not in that illusion. And our movements, everything is controlled by demigods. They are so powerful. Each and every living entity is under their control. And whenever material nature, like Lord's plan, something has to happen, so powerful. See, like Corona, when it came, nobody can do anything because it's Supreme Lord's power, and it's who takes care of it in the material world, demigods. So they're very powerful, very, very powerful. These demigods are all living entities, Nityanam, with different grades of material power. We also have material power to a very, very, very limited extent. All the scientists, they do some discoveries and they feel that they've achieved something, right? But actually, the best of scientists, they understand, saying that I believe apparently Albert Einstein said that we are just discovering what Lord has already created, right? So great people understand, saying that they're just very tiny, but Lord also invests those powers. So somebody, if Columbus had to discover India, that means that he was invested with some power by the Lord for him to be able to do that. Or if Einstein or whoever, right, any of the scientists have to do something, have to achieve something, they are actually they are empowered by the Lord. Otherwise, it's not possible. It's not possible. So we also have some power, but which is all given to us by the Supreme Lord. So we should not be, um, very proud about it, arrogant about it, because it can go in a minute. And of course, as devotees, we all very clearly know, saying that whatever, like the other day we were discussing, Shiv Shankar Prabhu and me, saying when we are giving class, whatever is going to come is just mercy of the Lord, because we don't know. We don't know what needs to be spoken. And we might make some preparation here and there, but we don't prepare for like 1 hour of what we need to speak. So which means that practically, depending on who the audience is, who has to hear, who needs to get what, etc., Lord makes the person speak. I mean, provided we don't have any ulterior motives, right? If you have some ulterior motives, then Lord will let it run, right? Okay, your ulterior motive. But if we don't have any ulterior motive, then it is just we have to become transparent mediums for whatever message has to flow. So devotees, we should understand very clearly, saying it's absolutely not my ability. It's just mercy from, through Guru, Parampara, Krishna, just coming through. They cannot be equal to the Supreme God. Prabhupada is saying, don't think that they're equal to the Supreme. They cannot be equal to Supreme God, Narayana, Vishnu, or Krishna. Anyone who thinks that God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist, Pashandi. Hmm. Even the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. Actually, this is very nice, like when we read Bhagavatam, there's so many instances, so many pastimes, uh, where we clearly understand, saying like Vishnu is far superior, far superior. Brahma Vimohana Lila. Then that other instance when so many Brahmas come and Chaturmukha Brahma thinks he's the only Brahma, but then he sees, and then there are like 1,000-headed Brahmas, 100-headed Brahmas, all kinds of Brahmas, and he's bewildered. Hmm. I understand that where they're very tiny, and even Shiva, like that same fight with Bhaumasura. Um, then yeah, that is where that Shiva Jvara and Narayana Jvara. Then which is other one more instance, right? Very the Daksha Yagna. Um, where Shiva glorifies the Supreme Lord. So many instances in Bhagavatam where Lord Shiva also agrees, saying that, of course, see, actually it is Tattva is Shiva in the spiritual world is Vishnu Tattva. Right. So if you heard of Goloka chart, His Grace Gokul Chandra Prabhu beautifully there is a aspect where there is Sadashiva Loka, and then there is it's called Mahakala Loka, I think. I can't remember exactly. But then that Vishnu who comes in touch with the material world. So for material creation, he becomes Shambhu. Hmm. So basically, originally is actually Vishnu Tattva. So, and Shambhu in this material world also, he is Aradhya Daiva is Sankarshana. Hmm. So anyway, it's difficult, very complicated to understand Shiva Tattva. But the point is that they are all still they are all serving the Supreme Lord. Hmm. Krishna, Vishnu, Narayana, they are supreme. In fact, the Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva, Shiva Virinchinutam. Yet, curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism, which means that anybody can become Supreme Lord. This person has become Supreme Lord, so I will worship him like that. But that is not true. Because somebody does some, okay, take some vibhuti. Oh, Supreme Lord. Just some trivial siddhis that yogi can get. I mean, which devotees, also pure devotees, have this, but they don't demonstrate any of this. Once somebody asked Srila Prabhupada saying that, Prabhupada, if pure devotees have, then where is your Ashtasiddhi? He said, I've converted all your you mlechas to devotees. It is the most powerful thing. It doesn't, I mean, it's far superior than all this Ashtasiddhi business. So devotees are not interested in demonstrating it. Iha dehavataha denotes a powerful man or demigod of this material world, but Narayana, Vishnu, or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not belong to this world. He is above or transcendental to material creation. Even Sripad Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, maintains that Narayana or Krishna is beyond this material creation. However, foolish people, Ritagnana, worship the demigods because they want immediate results. This is also very interesting, right? Because demigods are obliged. Demigods are obliged based on the nature of worship of their so-called followers. We don't necessarily call them devotees. They are obliged to give them whatever they need to get. So it's like a rule book. Okay, if you do this, you have to give this, and you're obliged to give. We know how, like Shiva, Brahma, they give out so many benedictions which are detrimental to them only, right? Like Brakasura, who came to kill Shiva only by trying to put his hand on his head, right? And of course, Brahma, we know Hiranyakashipu and other instances. Even Hiranyaksha, he got similar boon. But they are obliged. They're obliged. So people know that, okay, if I do this, if I worship this particular demigod by following this, then I will get this because it's given in the Vedas. So just do it. But now when it comes to Vishnu, Krishna, they are not bound by any rules. They will do whatever is most beneficial. Yet Shreyasyan Nishitam Bruhitan me. Shreya, whatever is Shreyaskara, long-term benefit, not short-term happiness. They will do only that because they're not obliged. They're not obliged. They don't have any mandate. It's like all the avatars have mandate, what time they have to come, which planet, which universe, what they need to do, etc. Krishna doesn't have. What happens when Krishna himself descends in Dwapar Yuga in the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu? What happens is that the time for appearance of Krishna and the time for appearance of the Yoga Avatara both coincide. So it appears like Krishna is the Yoga Avatara, but he is not. Krishna has come independently to do his own work. Prabhupada writes in the purport, no obligation. Krishna is not obligated. It's not like I have to come here only or do this thing only, but he does out of his free will, out of his sweet will. Of course, he has free will, but he has sweet will. What is sweet will? Because he likes his devotees. He wants everybody from this miserable material world to come back to him. So out of his sweet will, he comes. Okay, let me attract all these conditioned souls who are, so attracted by my material external energy. Let me attract them by my internal energy. So the Lord comes. Not for paritranaya sadhanam, because that is work of Vishnu. Krishna comes because he is very dear to all the living entities. So anyway, the point is they get the results, but do not know that the results obtained are temporary and are meant for less intelligent persons. They're temporary, but it is there. They get it, right? The intelligent person is in Krishna consciousness and he has no need to worship the paltry demigods for some immediate temporary benefit. Prabhupada uses strong words. Paltry demigods. Small, not significant. When we are in front of the Supreme Lord, they are very small. So we don't have to worship them. And we should have full faith. Sarva dharman parityaja, Krishna says. This is also dharma. Dharma only. Karma dharma. It's there in the Vedas. So it's okay. But Krishna is saying Sarva dharman parityaja. Give up. Give up this also. So we should not have any worry, concern, etc. Just we should, of course, I mean, there is like respectful way of, we have demigods in our altar, you know, there are respectful ways of taking them out of the altar, etc. But the whole point is that we should understand that, you know, the other day, Purnima Mataji was messaging me saying that her mother suddenly one day decided saying that, okay, only Vishnu Tattva in the altar. So it's like that, you know, like once somebody gets full faith in Krishna, then they're okay. They're not worried. And I mean, the other interesting thing when you're talking about the demigods, I see is like, you know, Sai Baba in altars being worshipped at the same level as Lord, Supreme Lord. So how, I mean, like, you know, people are just, why? Because they say, okay, if I worship him, then I will get something. So they want to worship. And no understanding about who is who and what each person's position is, etc. Demigods, when they're being worshipped in the same altar as the Supreme Lord, they are actually in a very distressful situation, because it's like, you know, it's like, you know, just imagine some superior of ours, like in say somebody who's senior to us in bhakti, they and us are being, you know, we are made to sit on the same piazza, like, you know, dais, and we are also, they are being garlanded, we are also being garlanded. How we'll be feeling? We'll be like, oh my God, I mean, can I just escape from here? Can I vanish? Right? We'll feel so awful because we can't be at the same level as they are. So similarly, demigods are looking, saying that, oh, Supreme Lord is there, they should be worshipping him. In front of him, they are worshipping me. So they are even like, they'll feel even relieved when, you know, they're moved out of the altar. So we should understand the mood of, you know, because they're all living entities, they also have feelings. So demigods of this material world as well as their worshippers will vanish with the annihilation of this material world, but devotees will not vanish. How do we know? Devotees don't die. Anybody can answer? From Bhagavad Gita only, or if you read Bhagavatam. Instances where devotees did not die. Anyone can think of some examples?
Prabhuji, is it Hanuman who is on this
Hanuman,
thing?
okay, Hanuman didn't have a scenario to die, as in, I'm talking about other people who almost like it look like death, but it is not death.
Haridas Thakur.
How?
Prabhupada?
No, as in Prabhupada, he decided to leave this world at a point in time and he left the world.
But,
Anuprabhu, how Haridas Thakur? Yes, Punyamati.
but he's through his books and like we are reading the books and we are following his.
Yes, so Prabhupada said that I live in my books forever. Correct. Okay.
Narada.
Okay, Narada Muni, it is explained in the first canto. Right, his death was like lightning and thunder at the same time, which means that just dropped the material body and uh, got his spiritual body. Right, so it is not material death. Material
And
death means what?
also.
Huh?
Sant Tukaram.
So there are so many other devotees, not in. Yeah. So like, what is normal death? What is normal death? Normal death is where the subtle body has to carry the soul from one gross body to a new gross body which has been allocated. So enter the womb of another mother. This is death. Devotees don't have death. They will give up this material body completely, both gross and spiritual, subtle. And in spiritual body, they'll get spiritual body. They go to, of course, I mean, Bhagavatam also says that they go to sun planet, they're completely purified. Then from there on, they will move forward. Dhruva Maharaj is an exception where in the same material body he went. Krishna also takes Arjuna in the same material body. He goes to meet Vishnu. Right, so devotees are except they don't have any of these rules. None of these rules are bind them. So we are just waiting. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyakva deyam punarjanma naiti. So we are just waiting, because this benefit of this material, of all the bhakti that we are doing, we realize it fully only after the time that we give up. When we give up this, I mean, ideally after so-called death, after our so-called death, after we give up this material body, is when we'll realize the full benefit of our bhakti. Till then we can't realize, which means that, for example, you can't, I mean, if you're destined to go to some Vaikuntha Loka, you can't go till you give up the material body. Actually, in the Shastra, everything that we are doing is said it is there, it is for the next life. So even bhakti, we don't fully realize the benefit. We'll realize partially, just indication saying that, see, this is, you will get it. But the full benefits are only realized after we give up this body. So while we'll give up this body, but that giving up the body is not like normal death that normal living entities. And of course, the other thing is ajamila. We don't even have fixed lifespan. You know, right? Our lifespan is not fixed. Well, of course, this is people, devotees, parampara, got connected to parampara, fully surrendered. Ajamila walked over death, right? Dhruva Maharaj walked over death. Ajamila, practically Yamadutas were supposed to carry him away. Oh, how fallen. Vishnudutas come and then he gets extension of life. You should have gone to Yamloka then, but he gets extension. Then he goes ahead and he finishes his sadhana. Right, and he achieves perfection. At the end of the life, he goes to Vaikuntha. So we actually don't have to worry at all, either way. However, now or later, it's in Krishna's hands. We depend on his mercy. We dedicate our life to Krishna. We should dedicate our life to Krishna in serving Krishna. So if you do that, then there's no question of coming back. Absolutely no question. Full faith. Why? Did I do that exercise here? That exercise here? I don't know where I did that exercise. I can't recollect. How many of us have confidence that we'll go back? Assume for now, saying that our goal is to go back to Goloka. How many of us think, or how many of us are confident that we'll achieve the supreme goal in this life? How many of us, is the question clear? How many of us here, we are about 16 of us, how many of us are confident that we will achieve our destination in this life? In this life, as in we will not come back again to this material world. Okay, Madhurya Mataji. Others, you have to say either yes, no. Rohit Prabhu, yes. Okay, Anu Prabhu. Anu Prabhu, Madhusmita Mataji. Hare Krishna, we have to go forward. You'll have to answer.
Sorry, Prabhuji, it was mute. Yeah. Yeah, seeing the current position, no, Prabhuji, but yes, by the by putting efforts and by the mercy, we'll go.
No, only one answer I need. At the end of this life, whether we'll go back to Goloka or not. Yes, no.
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay. Ruchira Mataji, no. Okay, Patil Prabhu, yes. No, I don't want reason. I want only yes or no. Okay, who else? Anybody else who wants to answer? Prabha Prabhu, Rupa Mataji, Shashikala Mataji. Manoranjan Prabhu, yes. Shiv Shankar Prabhu,
Yes, Prabhuji.
yes. Purnima Mataji, yes. Shashikala Mataji, yes. So, okay, now whoever has said yes, tell why. Whoever has said why yes, can you please tell why? Why you are confident? Okay, Madhurya Mataji says, by the mercy of, okay, because of surrender to Guru Maharaj. Okay. Okay. So, so those who said yes,
It's a promise made by Krishna that if we follow Krishna's instructions and surrender to his representative, then Krishna will take back.
yeah,
the
but
promise.
Krishna, see, Krishna is a bit challenging, okay, because Krishna says Sarvadharman Parityaja.
No, in
Hmm.
Shipram Bhavati, like through Arjuna, he says that. He
Yeah,
asks
but
Arjuna.
still he says Sarvadharman Parityaja. Without Sarvadharman Parityaja, Krishna is not going to accept us, no? For Krishna to accept Sarvadharman Parityaja, but Shipram, yes, surrender fully, then he will take.
Yes.
We need little more mercy. Okay, so see, basically we should understand. Prabhupada has said, chant 16 rounds for regulative principles. I will take you back to Godhead. I have backdoor entry to Goloka. Right? That's it. We just depend on Prabhupada. Next life to Goloka means Brahma Vrindavan also is Gokula. It's same, not different. So Madhurya Mataji was asking, next life means we still have to do apprenticeship in Krishna Leela. Yeah, but that Krishna Leela in Brahma Vrindavan is non different from Goloka. So it's okay. It's just technically. But the whole point is that it is not our efforts. So those who said no, those who have any doubts, please understand it is not our, yes, of course it is our efforts, but it is not only by our efforts. We have to simply follow the process. Right? And the process is chant 16 rounds for regulative principles. Because if we chant properly 16 rounds, then there's no question we are going to remain in this material. And Srila Prabhupada, he brought down the standards from 64 rounds to 16 rounds, and he's saying, okay, I will take you back. Why are you worried? Somebody might say, okay, 16 rounds is just 2 hours. But Prabhupada is giving promise. But he said offenseless chanting. 2 hours chanting is okay, but it has to be offenseless. So we should not bring our own sense of ability, lack of ability here. Please understand. Mostly those devotees who said, no, it's not like they are just being very humble about their situation and saying, no, the way Anuprabhu is just pulling your leg. Yes, of course, our mood should be saying that, oh, the way I'm practicing bhakti right now or the situation around me, possibly I will not achieve it. Right? But the only qualification required is to just surrender and follow those rules. That is why as soon as we get initiated, just stick to those 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds. Even I mean, in some cases, especially Mataji's, there might be extraneous conditions, right, where things are not in your control. Sometimes husbands are not supportive, etc. But you know that you are not engaging anything that you are doing is not because of sense gratification. Krishna knows, and acharyas knows, and guru knows. So if we are sincere and serious and we try to follow this path given as much as possible, not willfully break rules and regulations, right? But Stri Dharma is important. Now, when you're following Stri Dharma, if there is some compromise that is happening, not willingly, but unwillingly, Krishna knows that. So you don't have to be thinking, saying that, oh, no, I am not following everything, so I am not eligible. Yes, that should be the mood, but reality is different. Reality is that there is mercy. See, without mercy, there's no way we can think about all this, right? But that mercy will come for those who are surrendered. Surrendered. Situations might be difficult. Many a times, situations are so difficult. But in spite of that, when we are trying hard, to push, Krishna will give mercy. Guru will give mercy. Acharyas will give mercy. But we should try. We should try. Yes, we should try. But our trial is not everything, is not all in all. That we should remember. This is very important. See, this is faith. The faith, which is why I keep telling people, saying that please come to the parampara. Please become attached to the parampara, because without being attached to the parampara, there is no hope, really no hope. Right? Like a lot of people argue saying, okay, Hare Krishna can be chanted without initiation. Yes, we don't need initiation for that. But we are so weak. How will we survive in this material world? We need that protection of superior, like powerful Guru, who will give us mercy, give us instructions, give us mercy, pull us along the way. So once we get connected to the parampara, then the mercy of the full parampara is with us. Of course, then we have to be serious. We can't do take it easy, not casual bhakti. Tivrena bhakti yogena. But if we do that Tivra bhakti, then there is no doubt, Prabhupada will take us. Guru Maharaj will take us. Both the material worlds and their inhabitants, including the demigods and their worshippers, are bubbles in the cosmic ocean. In this world, however, human society is mad after temporary things such as material opulence, possessing land, family, and enjoyable paraphernalia. Unfortunately, even devotees are. This is the irony. This is the irony of so-called our practice. Even devotees are behind these things. It's not good. It's not good. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayavati Ashu Vairagyam Gnanam Chaya Dahitukam. We should develop renunciation automatically. Automatically. If you are not developed renunciation, that means that we are not doing something properly. It's just like a trivial side effect of practicing bhakti is this Vairagya. Vairagya is Yukta Vairagya, we always know. We're not running away to the forest. Yukta Vairagya, not Falgu Vairagya. But we should not make plans. So many devotees, we make plans. This, that, let me get this, let me get that. To some extent, maybe, because we are living in this material world, to some extent, to deal with this material world, we might have to do some things. Like, for example, we know that it's like, maybe highly surrendered souls, maybe they don't do. But say having an insurance, medical insurance, maybe it's okay, because when medical expenses come, that money which has to be used for Krishna, why will we go and use it on our body? Right? So let some insurance company pay. Right? So it's okay to part with little bit for from our money, because so that Krishna's money can be utilized properly. Right? Because otherwise, if you don't have insurance and if somebody gets hospitalized and they spend lakhs of rupees wasted, to try and save this material body, which is anyway going to. But of course, then it is property of Guru, so we can't ill-treat it or be irresponsible about it. But we can save Krishna's money in this bargain, right? By maybe paying some very small premium. Okay, Madhurya Mataji is asking Vairagya and Yukta Vairagya, Falgu Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya is using everything in Krishna's service, knowing that everything belongs to Krishna and using everything in Krishna's service. Falgu Vairagya means just renouncing. I don't want this. Prabhupada said, people, sannyasis don't want money. But if somebody says, I have money, I will say, please give with both hands. Why? Because it's going to be used in Krishna's service. So everything we have should be used in Krishna's service, right? That is renunciation. That is real renunciation. The other is just Falgu. Falgu is like improper or cheating Vairagya. False Vairagya. Markata Vairagya, it's called, like monkey. Monkey doesn't wear clothes, so somebody might say, oh, he's so renounced. But monkey also engages in uncontrolled sex. So there is, you can't look at somebody's external and say, okay, this person is renounced. Okay, so to achieve such temporary things, people worship the demigods or powerful men in human society. So this is also very important. As devotees, we should not for ourselves worship material people. Like depending on somebody, what in English they call bootlicking. No, we shouldn't go and hold on to somebody else's feet for ourselves. For like getting something for the Supreme Lord, we can, like for example, some permission is required, political connection, this, that, and all that. We can go along, play along, as they say, right? But not for ourselves. If a man gets some ministership in the government by worshipping a political leader, he considers that he has achieved a great boon. All of them are therefore kowtowing to so-called leaders or big guns in order to achieve temporary boons. And they indeed achieve such things. Such foolish men are not interested in Krishna consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. They're all after sense enjoyment. And to get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they're attracted to worshipping empowered living entities known as demigods. This verse indicates that people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. They're mostly interested in material enjoyment, therefore they worship some powerful living entity. Yeah, people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. We have these classes and rarely people attend. So this is reality of this material world. Unfortunate, but true. So yes, devotees don't worship demigods, but devotees should also not go behind temporary material benefits. This is the sum and substance of this particular shloka. Okay, so we will end here unless somebody has any questions or any points to be discussed. I will end the recording. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.